It's happenstance. It's not happenstance that the 4 people you see here are concerned with security. We, as you have seen during the last couple days, that doesn't look too well. Yeah, fix your background or fix your something. And so what we've been doing is watching the network. We haven't been attacking you. If we did, you'd be in deep, deep trouble, let me tell you. The assumptions you make, the way you run your stuff, what you're doing on the net, for a large number of people here, is just really unsound. And you heard what Rob Thomas had to say, and next slide, please. It's like shooting fish in a barrel. Okay? You are the fish. This is the barrel. Okay? We have watched the network in less aggressive ways than a hacker would. Okay? Bill's going to tell you a bit about how we did it and some of the results, and Steve's also got some more results. Okay? Take this really seriously. This is not just the nanognet. This is what's happening when you're at home. This is what's happening anywhere. You are not safe.
Okay, thanks for the cheery introduction, Randy. What have we been doing? Well, we've been sniffing the network, capturing passwords, URLs, email messages, some of the unencrypted IM traffic that goes by. How? Well, I don't know if anyone has noticed this little piece of Cisco equipment, but it looks like any other piece of Cisco equipment that you might happen to have in your rack. So you might not even notice it if someone manages to install something like this in one of your data centers. You know, it's not obvious that this is a PC running FreeBSD that's transparently intercepting all of the network traffic that goes through it. So how did we get the traffic? Well, we got a span port on the catalyst that sees all the traffic. You say, oh, well, that's not fair. You know, we're cheating. Monitoring the wired network isn't fair, because if I'm using a wired network at home or even using the wired network here, you know, it's all switched. The switch traffic is safe. Well, no, it's not. With a cheap little unmanaged switch, most of these you can flood their forwarding tables and get them to broadcast on all ports or play various other tricks. And there are tools out there that know how to do this. The other thing is, if you're sitting in one of the Ethernet rows, where's that wire that goes out from the side of the hub going? Well, it's going to the switch. It's going to the next switch. Well, you know, what's to prevent someone from inserting a hub in between there? You know, do you trust the guy who's sitting next to you to not have plugged something else into the network? You know, maybe we have some physical security, but it's not 100%, and you can't necessarily trust it. So even when you think you trust the infrastructure, you know, it's a switched network, nobody can sniff it. Don't. So here's the upshot. We captured 129 website passwords, 50 some POP passwords, 25 AIM passwords, some IMAP, IRC, FTP, CVS, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All of these.
Do you understand the significance of that? Those HTTP passwords? Pardon?
Right. I mean, so Randy's saying, do you know what the significance is? We didn't analyze what these passwords are for. Certainly, you know, it's obvious that the POP and IMAP passwords are for reading people's email, and the AIM passwords are for logging as you on AIM. So, you know, if you care about your email, you probably don't want to be one of those 70-some people who got their POP passwords sniffed.
And if you have a shell account on that machine that has the POP password?
Randy says if you have a shell account on the machine that has the POP password sniffed, then it's entirely possible that you could log into that. The person who sniffed the POP password could then use that POP password for other uses. The HTTP passwords, it's not clear. Some of them, might be just throwaway things. I know I always capture a various number of passwords that are relatively throwaway. It's like, who cares if you get access to this weather data for pilots that I had to sign up for and they don't give me a secure way of accessing? Well, you get my password for that, so what? But some of it is probably, operational data, looking password protected MRTG pages or things like that you might not want everyone in the world knowing. And then of course there's the issue of, do you use the same password everywhere, or do you use an individual password? If I grabbed your password for the flight data, did I also get your Yahoo mail password or something like that? So, the sheer number of passwords captured here is a little bit scary. So what else did we see go by in the clear? Well, these numbers are a little bit old, but I didn't have a chance to update them after lunch. So 2,341 email messages. Was there anything private in any of those? Probably. 264,820 web URLs. So we know what people have been surfing to. Are any of those URLs that shouldn't have been published that you know in your head or you have a bookmark for, but there are no external links to? Well, there may have been, it's published now. So this is a slide that I put up at Nanog 22 in May 2001 as an attempt to, kind of point out that it's possible to sniff these things and that people should be more careful with encrypting their sessions and stuff like that. So did it get any better? Well, not really. There's so many that I can't fit them all on without overlapping. So,
and if your password's up there, it's not just Bill who got it. There are people in this audience who I wouldn't trust.
From the talk the other day, you'll notice that Cisco is up there.
I'm not saying to trust me.
There are several other passwords that are just, completely obvious. I really mostly just cut and pasted from the log to this slide and didn't look at them.
I'd like to know who typed Cisco during my presentation.
There are, password is up there, that's a good one. Encrypted, right, I saw that one too. So, maybe these are passwords that don't matter, but, look up there. Is one of your passwords on there, and do you care? So, I'm not saying that you should feel stupid because your password was on that list, because, my password was on that list. I just reinstalled this laptop on Saturday, and when I configured my mail client, I didn't click the Use SSL box. And so I noticed this because I was looking through the passwords in the list, and I said, hey, I have a password that starts with 4. Hey, that's the rest of my password that starts with 4. So, I'm not trying to say y'all are stupid for having passwords that I was able to capture. But, it's sloppy, it's careless, and, we can do better. It's trivial to do better. So, because I just changed the formatting, this looks dumb now, but the most seen passwords, this DX3.5 at A password was seen 252 times. I'm voting this password the most likely to get sniffed. Then, there are a decreasing number, but, if you send your password out in the clear 252 times, you're just asking for someone to get it. I don't know if you saw on the slide with the number of captures, but there was a telnet. It did look very much like it was someone logging onto a router, maybe typing the password wrong the first time. There was a username which I edited. It wasn't actually Joe Isuzu. I'm not actually Joe Isuzu. Then, you know, the password, Cisco, okay, enable, San Jose. Thank you. If those are your passwords, please change them. But, you know, this is something that anyone could have captured. It's not, you know, doing these kinds of things is not safe, and, you know, we really want to emphasize that. Yeah, more stuff got cut off, but there was a pop password, Sunshine, that got sent in 2 different emails, one request and one response to that request, like, please change my password to Sunshine. There was one password, Bang7 Helios, that was sent and then quoted in replies 7 different times, 5 different times. Someone emailed out a Cisco config with, you know, password 7 something something something, which decrypts to mic and in digital. So if those are your router passwords, please change them. That thing at the bottom is probably too small to read. It says, what was your server name? I also don't have the username and password. Don't send it over the net. I am at a conference of network operators, and I'm sure someone is sniffing the network. Well, you were right. What else do we have? Oh, some results from sniffing the web traffic, Webalizer results. These are a number of requests from that browser and the browser type. So we've got the top 2 are Internet Explorer on Windows, I think that's XP, NT51. The next one is Safari on Mac OS, and then Mozilla on Windows, IE on Mac, Safari, Mozilla, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then finally, all the way down at the bottom, there's a Mozilla on Linux. You know, there were a whole bunch more, but either the Windows users get bored much more often, or I don't know exactly what's going on there. And boy, why is that one in gray on black? That's a bummer. So there are actually 2 pieces of information on this screen. The most seen search strings. Bruce Sterling was #1 with 20 searches. I don't know exactly what's up with that. Cost of living, multicast flooding, Nanog, that was a good one. Ron of Japan, who went there? Was it good? Should we go there? And the thing that's in gray on black, which nobody could possibly read, is the list of referrers, meaning what sites sent you to another site. #1 was CNN. #2 was eBay. Number 4 or 5 was news.google.com. So, you know, mostly people are reading news or, you know, news stories. So I think that's all the results that I have. Questions? Steve's next.
Yeah, I have a question. Do you get it? You're dead meat out there in the world. It's not just here, but out there in the world, as you're sitting in using T-Mobile at Starbucks, as you're sitting in your 2,000-person corporation where you're sure nobody there is a miscreant, except the CEO and CFO. You're dead meat. Change the way you do things. And there are reasonable ways to do them.
Speaking of which, I have a question too, which is...
Who are you?
John Scudder, Cisco. How much non-bad news was there? Like, how much stuff was SSH'd or SSL'd or otherwise unreadable by you?
Yeah, we really tried to collect that data and then had a data collection failure. So I can't really tell you. We were using this tool that turns out it aggregates all the port numbers that it sees, and so it aggregated port 22 with port 80. Poor choice of tools on our part. But actually, that tool did tell us there was a lot of UDP encapsulated IPsec. There was a lot of UDP to port 10,000 that that was the only thing we could guess what that was. So there is a fair amount of good news. It's not all bad, but just the sheer number of passwords is, overwhelmingly bad news.
And looking at you heard the announcement yesterday about a machine that had a keyboard logger installed, and we found that because it was one of the pieces of email that was picked up was the keystroke log being mailed out. This was a person who was using SSH, which is the good news. The bad news is SSH alone is not security. You need to worry about the endpoints as well.
So speaking about the tools, I was just wondering what you use to capture all these, and can
Name?
Sorry, Patrick Gilmore, Akamai Technologies. What software you used, and does it compile under Mac OS?
Yeah, I use dsniff, and it does, although the results were captured on that box running FreeBSD. So dsniff got us the password list, the email, the URLs. There were several other pieces of software which we didn't really quite have time to install and prepare, but there's lots of stuff out there, especially some of the more obnoxious stuff that tries to look inside SSL connections and stuff like that.
If you look at the upper right-hand corner of the screens right now, I'm running DriftNet in real time right now, and it's just picking up GIFs and JPEGs that it sees flowing over the air, especially in web traffic, and displaying them. So if anyone's looking at interesting pictures right now within range of my card, the whole room might get to see them. I know that's an invitation. This is live TV, folks, going up in that corner.
Just one more note is just remember what Bill said about it didn't require us having that switch. There are widely available tools to use ARP spoofing on any switch.
Yeah, let me
You
go on.
don't have to have control of the switch. You can cause it to give you the traffic.
Should we take these
Just
two
a
questions?
quick comment on the
With
key.
the person behind you was first.
Medica Keo, I'm an independent consultant. I want to have a comment for at least the service providers who are dealing with your edge users, your sort of, non-clued users. I actually have been trying to educate my own ISP for the last 2 years, and I've now given up and I'm changing, because for 2 years, and they're not looking to change it, they have absolutely no security mechanism in place when I'm traveling and reading email. And that sucks, and I hate to give up because I'd rather educate them, and I now realized about 2 weeks ago that they simply do not care. And I wish something could be done to get rid of those people.
Well, vote with your feet, America.
Can you, sniff the CEO's web password and start sending out mail as him?
You don't have to sniff his web password to do that.
Anyway, who are you?
Owen DeLong, Tell Me Networks. On the keystroke logger, aren't we lucky that the bad guy was lazy enough not to encrypt the mail?
Yes. And the bad guys are getting better and better at stuff like that. Now, what with the some of the stuff that we saw going on yesterday with the worms? What's going on with my machine now? Yeah, I decided to go pay more attention just what was going on maliciously around here. So I'm running NetBSD, which may or may not be more secure, but certainly is less common than just about any other operating system in the room, which gives you no small measure of protection. But I also firewall off just about any port in existence, and just for my amusement, I log the packets I block. It tells you a lot about what's going on. Supplement that with TCP dump. So when we're having the wireless net, especially yesterday morning, not working well because of worm-infested machines, I ran this little TCP dump. What it was doing is looking for packets SYN packets to and from this network to TCP port 135. This is, I don't think anyone's really trying to do Windows file sharing in this room on the wireless network. At least I hope not.
They're succeeding anyway, by the way.
No, they're succeeding anyway. When I got that, I looked back and I'd find something like this in my blocked packet log. pretty good worm sign. This was one of the ones that was announced yesterday. A ping packet followed by a few TCP SYNs to port 135 on my machine. I guarantee I'm not exporting any Windows file shares on the machine. It's NetBSD doesn't do that very often, but this was characteristic of a couple of, this is what, Welch year, Rob? And we saw a fair number of instances of that yesterday. At that, this site was pretty good to some of the last few I've been to. It was really great about a month ago when I was at a security conference, so we had 2 or 3 in the room. 30 people in the room, all security people. We had 2 or 3 Welchie-infected machines. It was great. And you use NMB lookup. A lot of Windows users don't realize that if they're running Windows file sharing, you can ask them ask the machine, tell me about yourself. Very often you get the owner's full name. Even if not, well, here there was very nice DNS dynamic update, coming back to the person's home site, and in a few cases, people use their names as their host names. So it wasn't hard to find the owners of some of these machines. Not necessarily a bad thing, but do you know that you're giving away that information? You know, Russ has his machine locked down pretty tightly, and for a while I was just monitoring everything sent by his machine. And every now and then, the Windows name stuff would just announce who it was to the world for no apparent good reason. You couldn't talk to it. It was firewalled off from receiving anything, but that didn't stop it from saying things. Talkative little process. Yeah, I thought it was very nice during Rob's talk yesterday about just what the bad guys were doing in passwords named Cisco. That was when we found this somewhat trying to use his web proxy password to go look at some of the Team Cymru people and giving away a password in the process. I thought that was marvelous timing. Hey, the other thing about this password that struck me is clearly it's a high quality, not very guessable password. I congratulate the person who created it. But it doesn't do much good to use strong passwords on unprotected networks. And this was just on the wireless net. Some other good ones we saw, yes. As Bill mentioned, we saw a password of encrypted in a plain text session. I thought that was great. A password of password on POP. And a username of superuser with no password. As I recall, that domain was mrtg.something or other. So a lot of stuff we could have done, we didn't. Some of this was inspired because at least 2 machines here were emitting RIP version 1 and version 2 query packets.
So one of the points that we want to make is this was all passive. We didn't act on any of the data that we collected, but we could have. Yeah, we could have done port scannings, and we could have done ARP attacks, and we could have responded with default routes to those RIP queries, and we could have used those passwords to see what other kind of good stuff was available in those accounts and chained on from there. And so the point is we just showed step 1 in a complete takeover of these networks. Instead, we're telling you what we did in the hopes that you'll eliminate step 1 by the next time this group gets together. So that last bullet here on the slides about the active routing attacks is an interesting one, that some, actually it was 2 machines were running RIP on here in the room and requesting routes. And so, these old protocols are being used, and if the person also was running a VPN back to their home and we had provided a route, it's interesting what may have flowed out.
Russ is being subtle. He could have responded with a RIP packet to that querier announcing default and have a good chance of sucking your entire corporation's traffic through the VPN to a tapping machine. In other words, you remember the guy, Mr. Nowhere Man from Yellow Submarine, who slurped up the entire world? Well, you just did that to your company, or you opened it up to a hacker. So if this and the song and dance Rob did the other day, etc., have scared you, the question, of course, occurs, what do you do about it? Okay? The majority of people here are probably users of some funny little operating system that doesn't give you much control, that comes from near where I live, in the Pacific Northwest. When you type a URL, or when a URL asks for your username and password, or anything that looks for your username and password, look up in the location bar, and if it does not say HTTPS, don't type it. Because otherwise you're giving away your user ID and password over an unencrypted channel. Do not pick up pop mail or send outbound mail over unencrypted channels. There are simple tools that you can put on your system so that you use SSH tunnel, simple free tools you can put on your laptop to have and run your inbound and outbound mail over SSH tunnels. Now, unfortunately, a number of people here are assisted by IT departments who you can't install anything, etc. I suggest telling senior management at your company what you heard here and tell them that they are placing their company at risk and to try to get their IT department to act in your company's interest. I'm sorry, go. Who?
Sean Figgins, Adelphia. I get a question for everyone out here. How many people are actually surprised by this? Raise your hand. Okay. One. How many people here are scared of this? Okay. So, my other question for you guys was, is this worth it for you guys?
What do you mean worth it for us?
Well,
if the people who are scared actually go out and do something, then we're kind of doing our job.
That's fine, but it apparently, to me, is that what you presented here did not actually scare anybody or surprise anybody. They already knew that it was happening, and they were previously already scared about it.
You know, life is getting better. I'm now regularly at meetings where I don't collect any passwords. That's even meetings of non-security people. So we are making some progress on this. The thing is to get the word across. You know, and just to let people know of some of the newer tools. The middle bullet point there was an attack that was launched successfully at the Usenix Security Conference a couple of months ago. Security conference. Someone created turned his laptop into a fake access point with an SSID of Usenix blank rather than Usenix, and ran a honeynet daemon to see whom he would attract. He attracted someone using SSH, who of course got the message, the host key doesn't agree, proceed. At the security conference, this nice security conference user using SSH said yes, and then proceeded to type his password. But, you know, not everybody knows about fake access points. Lots of other ways we could have launched that particular attack, of course. 3 years ago at Usenix Security, someone took over all queries to port 80 and returned a web page and saying, all your web pages belong to us. Other people, I never noticed it that time because I was tunneling all of my HTTP was going by an SSH tunnel to a proxy server someplace a lot safer than an open wireless network. So things are getting better, but, well, they could be a lot better.
I don't think he asked the right question. Excuse me? Who are you, Marshall? Marshall Eubanks from Telesuite Multicast Technologies. I think the right question is, how many people in the room changed a password because of this presentation? And I'll raise my hand because I did. Well, either some shy people
or are doing so right now.
Or when they get back to a secure
or don't have an encrypted way to do it now and are waiting.
Owen DeLong, Tell Me Networks. One thing that helps with the SSH goodie that you presented is don't use passwords for SSH authentication. DSA keys are a much better way to authenticate.
Colleague of mine, Steve Kent, has got the analogy that insecurity is like entropy. You can't destroy it, you can move it around. You change the insecurity of the link into the insecurity of the crypto system. The key, presumably, you've got much better bounds on that. When I proxy my web traffic or my email traffic to someplace else, it doesn't make it secure. It just makes it, I hope, more secure. Do I trust my corporate LAN? Well, sometimes yes, sometimes no. Sometimes I tunnel my traffic to a server I've got someplace else on the internet. Occasionally I tunneled it to my house. For different things, different purposes. You can do different things in different ways. So, corporate email, I may as well tunnel back to the corporation. It's the corporation's business. They can try their best to secure their own networks. Web traffic, if that's personal, I'll take care of it myself if I can.
Wait a second. Point of order. We have 5 minutes left for this session, so what I'd like to do is have Rob say what he's going to say, and then we'll take questions for the time we have left.
Thank you, Dave. $50 well spent.
What? That's not what you said.
So, the observation I want to make to you, based on what I had said earlier, yesterday, and what you're seeing here, a lot of you probably run honeypots, advanced IDS, the way cool, wacky new thing coming out of the security industry, and you're typing your passwords in the clear. My point here is that there's a lot of really cool stuff out there, a lot of really cool technology. I hope you have the time to look at it, but until you get the basics right, the miscreants aren't going to care about the way cool technology because they don't have to. Until we raise the bar, they won't make the leap. Now, they will make the leap, but every time we raise the bar a little higher, a few more of them drop out. That's the secret. That's the trick. That's how we're going to win in the end. So you have to evangelize this. A bunch of wacky guys up here can tell you about this stuff, but until you do the best practices yourself and then evangelize them for your users, it's not going to get any better. In fact, it's going to get a lot worse. So remember, a little bit of laziness coupled with an entire economy that's making profit off of your easily owned devices, that's a lot of bad karma. Take the basic steps, folks. We're not telling you to spend millions of dollars in forklift upgrade all your routers. We're telling you to encrypt your passwords. All those simple things that you've been hearing for 10, 20 years. So I'd rather not do this 10 years from now. I have lots of other things to tell you.
Michael Dillon from Radiance. It would be interesting if in future nanogs, when this was done, there was a web server that one could go to that would recognize your IP address and then give you a report on what was discovered emanating from your IP address, what bad habits you would actually were guilty of. And the other thing that would be of interest would be some kind of a...
Send code.
Exactly.
Right, I mean, we all showed up Sunday evening or Monday morning and just kind of hacked.
Yeah. So it would be interesting to hear a little bit more of a report on the bits and pieces that were used to put this together, because I can see that this whole concept of a bad habits reporting tool would be useful to a lot of people. We could use that as a leverage to evangelize this stuff.
Well, I'm using DriftNet. It's part of package source and NetBSD, the ports collection on FreeBSD, easily available elsewhere, I'm sure. I also use TCP dump, IP filter, and dsniff.
Yeah, I mean, I use basically dsniff, all the tools in it, and a bunch of ad hoc things that I hack together to take the dsniff output and turn it into a list of passwords. I mean, I could start sharing that kind of ad hoc stuff, but it's just box scripts.
How about a tool that if automatically watches and if you disclose, it black holes your traffic? Right? You probably can't stop that packet, but it black holes you now, and you'll come whining to the help desk, and 30 people will sit there and help all you poor Windows users clean up your mess.
We probably have time for one more question.
I'll just say, some of these tools are hot. It's hacker off-the-shelf software. You know, it's easily available.
Go.
Okay. There was a pattern about a year ago I'm Sam Weiler. There was a pattern about a year ago of interesting worms showing up less than a month before a NANOG meeting, and a very good analysis of those worms appearing at the NANOG meeting. And then at the next NANOG meeting, someone showing, or a month before the next NANOG meeting, a new worm showing up. While it would be interesting to see if this audience is as educable as the miscreants who wrote the worms, we have a little bit of a disadvantage. We don't have the window between the attack and finding out and getting the analysis of it. We'd be 2 cycles behind.
There's always going to be another worm.
Okay, we can take one
Sam,
more.
are you saying that those guys are sending the worms so they'll have a talk for NANOG?
Okay.
Computer security, communication security, and job security, Russ.
Isn't that what you're doing?
Also, it's really important to consider the endpoints as well, as you were talking about the key logging, the physical security of your console and locking that when you leave. In addition, like leaving your computers alone, there were plenty of really, really nice toys that one could have walked off with a number of times.
Who are you?
I'm Adam Newman from Focal Communications.
Thank you.
Also, there were even more opportunities to go to someone's console where SSH was open or whatever, and take over someone's device that was administratively logged into from here, whatever. So we always try to make sure at Focal, whenever someone leaves their console open, to make sure to send out an email to the group from them, informing them of a new obscure sexual preference or something along those lines.
When Curtis LeMay was the head of the Strategic Air Command, he tried to keep people on their toes, and one of the things he did, it was basically a contest between the Defenders and the authorized Tiger teams. The goal of the Tiger team was to leave an empty Budweiser can inside the cockpit of a B-52. If the Tiger team succeeded, the wing commander was looking for another job. No excuses.
That's got to be the last comment there. So thank you, everyone.